Yes. We were supposed to go on at 9. Felix was celebrating his son's birthday, and we changed the starting time to 9:30, but we are trying some new equipment out, bringing us into the 21st century.
20th century, not 21st.
20th, okay.
Yeah.
So we started another 20 minutes later than that.
We used to look like the Campbell commercial. I'm watching you, Superman.
And during the day, we actually sent up smoke signals, but it doesn't really work at night.
But anyway, if anybody wants to, as I said, leave another message, as I said, I hope you didn't hang up because we didn't answer you. FDN. I can't read it. FOK Rock? Okay. Whatever. I'm sorry again that I missed you. Let's see. What else we got to talk about today? Let's go back to the grand juries. Now, I don't know if you know, everybody says the grand jury didn't find the two of them. There was no reason to charge them with any crimes. The reason why you put people, and try them in a grand jury because it's the easiest way to see if a jury will convict them. And you don't even need a majority. You don't need 12 people. You only need 9, I believe. Is that correct?
I don't know, but I do believe there's something like 23 people serve on a grand jury or thereabouts. So
yeah, I don't know if they all go to the same trial, but anyway.
But the prosecutor has complete control. There is no defense attorney. Witnesses are called, and they're asked a question, and if they start to embellish, it's up to the prosecutor whether he wants the grand jury to hear everything that they want to say, so he could cut them off in the middle and say, thank you very much, you've answered our question, or my question. Okay. They obviously ask the grand jury, do any of you have any questions? But most of the time, they don't have any questions for the witness. I say this because on Friday, I believe, I was watching a morning show and All News, and Lawrence O'Donnell happened to be on, and he was subpoenaed to testify 20 years ago on a grand jury. A police officer shot a homeless man with no provocation, and he testified that the homeless man was unarmed, and he was about to explain what he wanted to say when the prosecutor just cut him off and said, thank you, that's enough. Okay, now the prosecutors have a right to do that because there is no defense attorney there who will be saying, listen, we want to hear the rest of his testimony.
All the prosecutor wanted to hear was the man was unarmed.
Yeah, he just wants to hear whatever he can to make his case.
Yeah, so...
Okay, and that's it. But we also have to remember, as has been brought up many times, that prosecutors and police tend to work hand in hand. The prosecutors rely on police testimony and police reports when they are trying to arrest and convict somebody. So they have this closeness, and I don't know how quick a prosecutor would be to find the police officer guilty when they can somehow give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's what's been happening. Okay, again, I can't speak for Ferguson because we had no video. But I could also say that, if you watch the beginning of the video with Eric Gardner, it looks like the police officer has his hand around his neck. Now, to some people, it looked like that he had his hand a little bit lower than his windpipe, which means he would not be cutting off the flow of air. But as Felix pointed out, and he'll embellish this after I say it, I think the mistake that the grand jury made was going after one police officer. There were 4 other police officers there that were helping to take Eric Gardner down, and if you looked at the second video, the EMTs that were called to the scene were basically standing there doing nothing. Nobody was giving Eric Gardner any heart massage, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. One female EMT said, "Sir, can you hear me? Can you turn over?" et cetera, and the guy was just laying there. Okay? Another guy was standing up talking to another person with his hands in his pocket. All right? That's not what you want to see from EMTs. You know, that gets the fire department involved already, because the fire department are the EMTs, you know. And, you know, then you hear another story that my son Jonathan told me, that last week the person who was taking the video and taping the whole thing was arrested by the police on, I don't know, what sounds to me like a bogus charge. All right, they claimed that he had a weapon. I don't know if he did or he didn't. Okay, but, you know, sort of to, you know, play down his video, you know, the facts of his video and what was shown.
Well, how do you play down a video? You really can't. But
well, if they could discredit him, I don't know.
I don't see how that.
I don't either, but
I don't think that's relevant at all. But what I think is relevant is the only person that the grand jury was looking at was that officer who was supposedly doing a chalk hole.
And Pantaleo.
They were not looking at anything else. They were not looking at the EMTs, the other cops. None of them were being up for charge. None of them were up for charges except for the policeman who was taking them down.
Well, to tell you the truth, if you take a look at Officer Pantaleo, he looks to be about 5'8". He looks to be about 165 pounds, maybe 170 pounds. He is not. I mean, he could be strong. I can't say, but just from looking at him, you put him next to Eric Gardner. Eric Gardner is certainly the more imposing figure. I don't know how he could possibly have gotten him down without the help of the other police officers involved. You know, and if that's the case, like you said, they should have issued multiple arrest warrants for the other officers as well. And then I have to say, we are not passing judgment on anyone. We're not taking sides for Eric Gardner. We're not taking sides for the police. We are just talking about what we saw, just like everybody else is basically talking about what they saw. Okay? And if the legal system has learned one thing, it's that 2 or 3 people can see the same thing and explain it differently. Okay? If other witnesses come forward later on, between the time the incident happens and the time that they are questioned, okay, they may be reinterpreting what they saw in a different way. So there are a lot of factors. Again, it's very simple and easy for people like ourselves who are lay people and not involved, and we're not involved in the grand jury process, to throw stones and say this is wrong and that's wrong. Okay? But the one thing I will say is that these things have to be handled much quicker than they are. Okay? They can't be allowed to linger.
One thing I will say, I'm not of the same opinion of Mark. I have more faith, maybe foolishly, in our legal system most of the time, and the grand jury system. And my feeling is if the grand jury didn't find that he did anything wrong, there's a good chance he didn't do anything wrong, because it doesn't, again, what I said before, is it doesn't take much for the grand jury to prosecute somebody or to find somebody, well, not guilty, but ready to go to trial, that they found that they think that he's actually guilty of what he's accused of. And I don't really see too many prosecutors who are not going to act like the tough guy and let the cops slide, because that's just his career's on the line if he does that. And that's it. That's my opinion.
And you know what they say about opinions, Felix?
We all have them.
That's true.
Just like we both have two nostrils. Or some other parts of the body.
But we ask for your opinion. Once again, it's 646-595-3275. Like I just finished saying, we all have opinions. We know how we feel. We're not trying to spur any arguments on Blog Talk or Spreaker, just discussion. We want to hear what you have to say.
And we must admit, we have a lot to say also.
I actually, I think I pretty much covered both sides. I think I have a lot to say on both sides. So, I mean, I'm trying to be, my sign is Libra. So I am trying to balance the scales here and weigh the scales. I know for me it would be very difficult. Again, I wasn't privy to what the grand jury heard, but from what I could see, it could have gone either way. Certainly a charge of negligence might have been brought against the officer or a cadre of officers, really, carrying a much lesser sentence.
Well, you're talking about now taking away a man's career for doing what he's supposed to do.
Well, in Ferguson, Officer Wilson made his choice. He knew that he could not be effective serving on the Ferguson police force, that as long as he's out there would always be questions. So he felt that if he took himself out of the equation, things could start to mend. All right? From what I understand, Officer Pantaleo has been on the force for quite a number of years. He's slowly building up a pension. To throw all that away, to say that he can't be a police officer again, I mean, this is something that will shadow him for the rest of his life. And,
does it shadow somebody for the rest of their lives if a cop has a good shooting, a good, what do they call it?
It's a good shoot, a good kill. But the thing is, even that shadows a cop, I mean, you're never really the same. When you take somebody's life, you're never the same. Ask any veteran who comes back from a war zone. It was that way in World War II when they called it battle fatigue, in Korea, battle fatigue, and in Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan when they called it PTSD because they didn't know what else to call it. And the thing is, you also don't know when these things are, manifest themselves in somebody's psyche. Somebody could appear to be just fine, and then all of a sudden, something brings them back to what happened in the war zone, and all of a sudden they remember things. I know something like that happened to a person in my family that I really don't want to talk about, okay? But this happened years later, okay? Very traumatic, because the mind tends to shut things out as a defense mechanism. I'm sure that's what psychologists would say. But again, when somebody's been in a war zone and you hear a spark plug backfire or a car backfire or something, they drop to the ground because they think it's a gun. And all of a sudden, they're back in the battlefield. So, what can I say? But we would like to hear your views. Felix, what do you got to say?
I got to say is,
Let's put on